Quazi here. In today's video, I'm going to share with you how to control your mind in order to control your reality. To fully understand this, we're going to begin with a model of how our minds work, why we're experiencing the reality that we're experiencing, and how both your conscious and your subconscious mind work together to influence the reality that you're experiencing this very minute. This video is going to go into extreme depth into three main mechanisms that govern your mind and ultimately dictate your reality. And throughout this video, I'll also be sharing with you actionable tools that you can begin to implement right now to see results right before your very eyes. So, without further delay, let's go right ahead and get started. We live in an age where your attention is the most valuable resource. It's no wonder that these big companies are fighting tooth and nail to capture it. I was recently reading an article about how TikTok is used differently in China versus the rest of the world, and how TikTok is actually used to positively influence children in China whilst readily promoting the unhealthier version to the rest of the world to get children hooked. This addiction to social media is draining our dopamine reserves, making us paranoid, robbing us of our attention. And as you probably already know, wherever your attention goes, energy inevitably flows in that direction. So it's imperative now more than ever before that you guard your attention with all your life. So let's get started with mechanism number one via which we get programmed. And this explains our subconscious process and why we've been reacting a certain way, why we've been responding a certain way, and why we've been experiencing the same cycle in our lives that we've been experiencing. This is the key that you must understand in order to fully break out of your habitual way of being and feeling and thinking. So mechanism one is the stimulus response cycle. So let's gain a deeper understanding of how this works. Initially, we're presented with a stimulus. So in this case, let's say you're up one morning at 4 or 5 a.m. or maybe even 6 a.m. Maybe you wake up late, but you hear birds chirping outside your window. Now, when you hear birds chirping, immediately your brain cognizes it. There is cognition. This simply means you cognize that this is a sound, not sight, right? So sound, and then your brain begins to recognize it based on the past, based on past experience. Recognize. This essentially means you recognize that this is a bird chirping, not a dog barking. And now something interesting happens. You now react to this and you express acceptance or resistance. Oh no, I don't like this. This is annoying. This has just woken me up, right? So in this manner, our reaction determines this whole cycle and how it begins. And if we keep reacting the same way that we have been to every single stimulus being presented to us, we will keep experiencing the same results in our lives. So something important can happen here. Up to this point, up until the recognition process, everything is subconscious, kind of like your heart beating. You don't have to tell your heart to beat, it just naturally beats, right? So this whole process is subconscious. It simply happens without your interference. However, this process, the process that can determine the rest of your life's trajectory, this can become conscious. Unfortunately, up until this point, most people have been unconscious about how they've been reacting to things. So from this moment forward, instead of reacting, what we will do is respond. So in the instance of the birds chirping in the morning, instead of expressing dissatisfaction, we can begin to express our awe at nature. Perhaps we've been woken up. Instead of even resisting our dissatisfaction, we can accept that there was a waking up. Instead of ruminating about how the rest of our days are gonna suck because I'm tired, because I just woke up early, we can just accept it and deal with it. In this manner, we slowly begin to change the programming in our subconscious mind. And as a result, as you'll learn through mechanism 2, when I'm going to discuss it, you'll see how just learning to interrupt this pattern at this stage and just simply learning to respond will make dramatic shifts in your life, okay? So in understanding this, this may all be great, but it's much easier said than done. So we need a tool to allow us to wake up at this phase so that we don't react. We don't immediately go into a habitual way of reacting to it. Okay, so, any stimulus that's presented to you, maybe you hear that the inflation rates are rising, maybe you see in society or something with the government or, something that you don't like and you've been habitually reacting to it in a way that you don't want, right? How do we change that pattern? This all comes down to learning how to center your attention. I'm super excited to share this with you. So let's learn how to center our attention so we can gain back control and learn how to consciously respond to the different stimuluses that come in our lives. So I was actually reading this book recently. It's called Mind Control by Jose Silva. And it reminded me of something that I learned a long time ago. But something interesting that I discovered was your brain actually functions in 5 different brainwave states, okay? And the 5 different levels of function are gamma, which is, I believe, the highest level of brainwave, the highest frequency of brainwave. So in this state, you're more focused on intense concentration and you can pretty much focus harder, okay? The next stage, which is our normal, everyday, regular consciousness, is the beta brain state. This is where everyone is functioning at. A level below that is the alpha brain state. Okay, this is more when you're relaxed. A little below that is the theta brain state. This is more light sleep, rapid eye movement, and a level even below that, your brain waves are just almost like the frequency is so low, it's unrecognizable. It's the delta brain state. This is more like deep sleep. Our goal here is to simply switch from beta to alpha. If you can do this to program your mind with whatever it is that you want to program it with, and as a result, experience what you want in your reality, okay? So the whole purpose of the centering attention exercise is to get you more and more into the alpha brain state and just learn how to function in this state in your daily living. For most of you who are doing this exercise for the first time, you're going to experience an overwhelming sense of calm and peace. And it'll be quite different to what you've been experiencing in daily living. But for some of you, this will be quite normal. For regular meditators, you won't feel a difference because you've been functioning in this brain state and you're very accustomed to functioning in this brain state. So let's get straight to the exercise. So this exercise has 2 simple steps. Step number 1, every single hour, whenever the clock hits 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, the zeros, what I want you to do is set an alarm on your phone or a gentle reminder somewhere, okay? We just want to do this once every hour. We want a reminder once every hour. To get started off, this is quite sufficient. And we're going to call this waking up. Every hour we're waking up from whatever it is we were so immersed in, okay? Wake up every hour. Now, what we want to do is observe our breathing for 1 minute. Simple. What you do is you set a timer for 1 minute, you sit in a very comfortable, relaxed space with your spine straight and erect, and you just simply observe your in-breath and your out-breath. Normal breathing pattern. Don't try to change your breathing pattern. Just observe the natural breathing pattern that's already there. Very, very important, okay? Once you do this for a minute, you'll notice that the functioning of your brain waves has changed. Everything's slowing down a little bit. You can even slow down your breath without, forcing it, without making it feel unnatural. As you do that, your brain waves literally start to change. And as you center yourself, you're better able to respond. You're better able to become a more conscious human being, okay? So observe breath for 1 minute. So if you do this with me right now, simply stay there and observe your breathing. In, out. You can feel the sensations around your nasal or your nose area. That's all, just for 1 minute, every single hour. Keep doing this for 30 days. Your life will change profoundly. Like if this is something if you've never done before, I'm very, very certain, I can almost guarantee your life will completely change. Okay, so this is how we gain our attention back. And what's interesting is you'll be less hooked onto the unconscious behaviors that you've been accustomed to doing, like checking your phone, scrolling through social media, jumping from one app to the next, and just living mindlessly. You'll want more peace, and you'll have more space. There's more calmness, more ease. Everything just happens easily. There's less rush from moving from one thing to the next, okay? So please do this exercise for the next 30 days. I'm excited to see what it can bring for you. So now this brings us to mechanism number 2, which is the self-reprogramming cycle. A very, very powerful way for you to reprogram your subconscious mind. Okay, so now that you know how to center your attention and place it where you want to place it, it's time for you to learn how to reprogram your subconscious mind. And what I'm going to share with you here with this diagram, the self-reprogramming cycle, is going to completely change your life. Let's get right to it. Now, what I want you to understand is that the reality you're experiencing right now is all a subject. It's all determined by the convictions that you hold to be true, okay? I really want you to remember this. Convictions. And before something becomes a conviction, there are 3 levels it must rise through, which is exactly what the self-reprogramming cycle is going to explain. So it initially begins as a thought. Not much importance, a thought we will question any day. Then it evolves into a belief, which is level 2. When the belief is strong enough, it evolves to the level of a conviction, which we will never question. I think there's this great quote that summarizes beautifully. We question everything except the convictions we hold dearly. Those we will never ever question. So what we want to do is learn to unpack the convictions that we've held to be true. And that's what you learn to do with centering your attention, with becoming more conscious, by changing the pattern by which you respond to things, okay? Now it's time for you to consciously choose the convictions that you need to have in order to achieve what you want. And the secret to this really lies in the subconscious mind. And here's why. Because we have 3 different levels of convictions. There's convictions that we have about 2 things that shape the reality we're experiencing. There is the self-view that we have, how I view myself, which is the identity, okay? What you're experiencing right now is a direct result of how you view yourself, your complete internal world. If you believe you're worthy of something, that's exactly what you're going to do. If you believe you're deserving, then you will work hard to get it. But if you believe that you're not good enough, you won't even put in the work, because you'll be like, well, what's the point? I'm not good enough. So what's the point in even trying? It will never happen. An example I always like to use is whenever I went to the mailroom back in my old apartment, and there was a package that was delivered, but I was uncertain whether or not the package was delivered. And so I would search for the package half-heartedly. But then I checked my phone and I got the notification that the package had definitely been delivered. It's definitely in this room. All I had to do was just find it. And when I started searching for it with that level of conviction, I just knew that, hey, it's here, I just got to find it. My search took on a whole new different level of resolve, of intention. Do you see the difference? So that's what we want to do. We want these convictions that we have chosen ourselves. Unfortunately for mankind right now, 99% of the convictions that they have are the wrong ones, the ones that aren't serving them. That's why there's so much internal conflict, internal dilemma that you have. You want to do one thing, but you can't do the next because you just don't know how to consciously change your own patterns, okay? So there's 2 different types. We have the self-view, the identity that we have, how we view ourselves, and the world view that we have, how we perceive the world around us, which is called your paradigm, okay? So to give you an example of this, your paradigm is something that's, you may believe it's the right time to start a business or it's the wrong time to start a business. You're viewing the world as a great place to be in or a bad place to be in. It's kind of like, people who are more religious, they talk about it as their God view, How you view God. Is God benevolent and merciful? Is God loving, or is God punishing? Is the world punishing? Is the universe punishing? Is the universe unfair and unjust and cruel? That is your paradigm, okay? So there's different perceptions that we have about different things in our worlds, which have different levels, different subcomponents to this paradigm. But this is what I want you to know. There is views that we have that we hold to be true about ourselves, and there's views that we hold to be true about our worlds. The mission here for us is to consciously choose them, consciously choose and program these convictions. Because once we learn to do that, we get to experience what we want in our lives. And this was especially true for me when I started making these videos and when I started doing my business. Before I started, I had no idea, what I wanted to do, first of all, and I didn't believe I was capable enough. But then once I started to follow the self-reprogramming cycle, I started to become a different person. I started to view myself differently. You can even go back 3 years ago, 4 years ago when I first started the channel, and you can see how I've evolved differently, how the manner in which I speak, how it's evolved. It's all done so because I followed this cycle consciously, okay? So that's what I want you to know. We have two different convictions. Another important point to remember is whenever we shift our identity, okay, our sense of self-view, and we shift our paradigm, we don't ditch our old identity and our old paradigm. We encapsulate it in the new identity and the new paradigm that we have. So if you imagine concentric circles, right? If a smaller circle is how I view myself now, if I have to change my worldview, I have to incorporate this old self that I had and the old paradigm that I had into the new paradigm and the new worldview. You don't just get rid of it, okay? I learned this from a great book by, I believe it was Jim Collins, about leadership. And he talks about how when you become a different level of leader, you don't just ditch the old level of leader that you were. You've got to use that old level to be able to rise up to the new level. So I used to mistakenly believe that whenever I shifted my identity or when I shifted my worldview, I have to kill my old self and I have to kill my old worldview. No, you must learn to incorporate it. There has to be harmony. Okay, so without further delay, let's go right into this self-reprogramming cycle and see exactly how our thoughts evolve to the level of conviction and how we can use it to change both ourself and our worldviews. So it first starts off with a thought, but let's start off with the thought of Quazi is a bad video maker, or Quazi is a bad salesperson, or anything. Someone says that to me, and at first when I receive that idea, right? Every single conviction begins as an idea or as an incoming thought. It is my choice now how I respond or react to it. Interestingly, when you have a thought and you have a feeling towards it, it actually starts to become sticky. So a thought combined with a feeling, when someone tells me I'm a bad video maker and I get offended and I take it personally, I start to believe it. When I react to it and I give it emotion, I give it the power of my feeling, I actually begin to make it a part of myself. It starts to become a story, right? Because as human beings, we're feeling creatures. We get addicted to our feelings. So thought combined with a feeling makes a belief. Quazi is a bad video maker. Uh-oh, I hope this isn't true. Oh no, is this really true? Then subconsciously I start to look at ways in which this could be true. Oh, look at all of these bad comments. When I start to believe it, something very, very interesting happens. There's this thing in your subconscious mind called the reticular activating system, your RAS. When you start to believe something, your RAS gets pre-programmed with that belief, and it becomes like a lens, like a filtering lens. You only look for anything that would support that. It's kind of like your subconscious mind is kind of like Google search. You know when you're paranoid about something and you keep searching it on Google? Google only shows you stuff to confirm your paranoia. It only shows you proof that whatever you believe is actually true. So this is how reality works. It's very moldable. This is the mirror principle of reality. Whatever we're looking for, we will find. If you're looking for ways in which you're a bad video maker, you will find it. If you're looking for ways in which you've broken the law and you're a criminal and the government can prosecute you, then you will find those too, right? So everyone has done something in the eyes of the government that someone can catch and punish you for. Everyone's been a bad video maker, or everyone in a certain way has done everything. Whatever you're looking for, you will find, okay? This belief programs this thing in our subconscious mind called the RAS, reticular activating system. When the reticular activating system gets programmed, we look for confirmation of our belief. Now, when we find enough confirmation, this belief gets stronger and stronger until it evolves to the level of conviction. Once it's become a conviction, we're stuck in a hypnotic trance. We have certain desires and we have certain convictions. When there's an incongruency between our desire and our conviction, we experience an undesired reality. We're living a life that's painful, that's a complete negative feedback loop. We keep staying stuck in it. So to give you an example of this, I began with the thought of someone said Quazi's a bad video maker. It confirmed my suspicions. It made me fearful. That feeling of fear then turned this into a belief where I started to look for more of it to confirm that story. Remember, we're feeling creatures. We're just looking for something to feel. We just want to feel something because when we feel something, the ego feels alive. If instead we were just neutral to it and we didn't feel it, you know, it wouldn't stick to us, right? This is the power of acceptance. That's why people love gossip so much. People love to complain about something so much. You go on social media, everyone's got an opinion. People love to hear polarizing opinions and thoughts and feelings, and you know, it really has no meaning to it, but people just love it because it's entertainment. We want to be entertained. That's why we came into this world. But why not get entertained by the things that we choose to get entertained by, rather than unconsciously in a way that, you know, makes us live a life that we don't want to live, right? So then this thought of being a bad video maker evolves into the level of belief to the point where my RAS gets programmed. And when that happens, I look for that one comment in every single video where which confirms a comment that someone said that confirms that I'm a bad video maker. And I will ignore every single good comment in there. It is that crazy. I ignore 10 good comments and I only focus on the one bad comment because of my insecurity that's been developed by the thought and feeling that I've been entertaining. And over time, if you're not careful enough, if you're not observant enough, if you can't interrupt that stimulus response pattern, you can't center your attention, you become a slave to your environment. This is the cause of mankind's suffering, not being able to do this consciously. So now let's talk about how you can consciously interrupt this pattern and begin to reprogram your subconscious mind. After having worked with over 1,000 clients, there's always one thing that I hear from every single client that's transformed their lives, right? One main practice that they've used, and it's this one, right? So let's get to the 2 keys that'll allow you to manipulate this mechanism and use it for yourself. So remember, we talked about thoughts, feelings, beliefs, convictions, RAS, and confirmation. Out of this, let's begin with the initial stimulus. There's an incoming thought. Whenever a thought comes in, we have the choice of whether or not we want to resist this thought or just accept this thought as just a thought and see it for what it is instead of reacting to it. So if someone says, I'm a bad video maker, I can choose to resist and be like, no, I'm not. And by the way, when I do that, I'm already believing it. Because if it weren't true, I wouldn't need to fight it. I would just be like, yeah, that's your opinion and that's great. You know, I won't be able to please everyone. If I'm neutral to it, it doesn't affect me. So an incoming thought becomes an outgoing thought when I attach a feeling to it. So if you simply observe and accept incoming thoughts, they have no power over you. They're just simply data. You don't have to entertain every single data that you get. But there are other data that you get, other comments on your video that say you are a good video maker. And you can choose to entertain those. Do you see what I mean? We don't come up with any organic thought. There is no such thing. It's just data. It's just things we hear and see all around us. We can choose to see which one we want to make sticky. So key number 1, choose the thoughts that you want to entertain. Begin with a desired thought. Choose the outgoing thought. So if we begin with a desired thought of, I'm a great salesperson, I'm a good salesman, even though you might not be. Now we can begin to visualize what it looks like to be a good salesperson. We can begin to look at instances where we did one or two good things that correspond to that thought of I'm a good salesperson. The key to overriding this pattern, by the way, is to choose this desired thought, visualize it, feel good about it, combine it with a feeling. And the most important part is to look consciously for confirmation. If we want the conviction to come, the belief to come, all we need to do is choose the thought, choose the feeling, visualizing, feeling, and look for confirmation. These are the three things we need to do. I'm a good salesperson. I close a lot of deals. It feels good to close a lot of deals. I closed that deal before. How did that feel? That felt great. Confirmation in the past event. Ah, look, I did close deals in the past. I did do well in the past. And even if you haven't, right? Even if you're just starting off. You know, someone responded well to me. Someone on a sales call said I had great energy. However little it may be, does not matter. We celebrate every win. A win is a win, okay? Because as you keep celebrating the little wins, as you keep becoming grateful for the little things in life, it snowballs. It becomes huge. I began with being grateful for the nice comments that I got on my initial videos and keeping a positive attitude and confirming that. To now, 4 years later, I have a 7-figure business doing 100 grand a month every single month. And I couldn't have imagined it would snowball into this level, right? So as you keep doing this over time, your life will completely change. Those initial little thoughts that you had, they become such a huge conviction. You don't even question it anymore. Making videos is second nature to me now. I can just get on a camera and do it like that. It's not a problem. But before, there was so much preparation, so much hesitation, so much doubt. None of those exist anymore because I've been doing it so much and I've been looking for confirmation of where I'm good. And I've done it in the past before. I have the repetition, right? So that's why people talk about repetition and just taking massive action. Because this process happens unconsciously. But if you combine massive action with the right attitude, you're going to become unstoppable, right? If you know this stuff and know how to do it. So that's how you use the self-reprogramming cycle to completely reprogram your subconscious mind. The next mechanism you must know is when that old paradigm and that old self, the old identity comes up, how do we deal with it in the most appropriate fashion so that we don't fall back into the old self and the old worldview? Okay, so that's what we're going to discuss with mechanism number 3, the surrender mechanism. Okay, so now I want to share with you mechanism number 3, the surrender mechanism. I honestly believe this is the most important mechanism of them all because this is where most of our clients that I've experienced, that's where everyone fails. This is the reason why you see results happening in your life, but you can't maintain it. You know, one month you have a high revenue month, but then you ride the roller coaster of revenue, or you see something good coming into your life, but just as quickly as it comes in, it goes away. You can't maintain it. You can't stay with it. Okay? We're going to discuss exactly why this happens and what you can do about it. But before I get started with that, I know I've shared a lot throughout this whole video. So what I want you to do is pause this right now, go to the comments section and write down 3 takeaways that you've had. I'll be reading them personally and I'll be acknowledging them. So just pause the video, write down 3 main takeaways that you've had and I'm looking forward to them. Let's get started with the surrender mechanism. So please remember what I said in mechanism number 2, which is that our old paradigms and our old identities, we can never fully get rid of them. You know, like I used to mistakenly think that I'm going to kill my old self. You don't. It's always alive within you. Because when you really perform an identity shift and you become a different person, that old self, you have to use those experiences to mold you into the new self. So it's like those concentric circles. The smaller self gets swallowed whole by the larger self as we keep growing and growing and growing. It doesn't mean you're the same person because you're never the same person. You're changing every single day. So what we need to learn to do is integrate our old identity and paradigm into this new identity and new paradigm. Okay? And this really boils down to learning how to process our feelings. Because when that old self comes up, what most people do is they give it so much energy and so much resistance, and especially when people study a lot of reality creation manifestation work, they start to freak out and panic. They're like, oh no, why is this happening? This wasn't supposed to happen. And we become very controlling, right? And there's something really, really powerful that I heard from my personal trainer. Because we were talking about how, oh yeah, I can't sleep at night because of all this noise. And he was telling me how, you know, like he has a TV in the bedroom, and to me that's insane, right? And he's like, oh yeah, like when I fall asleep, my wife has the TV turned on in the background and I just fall asleep. I'm like, how do you do that? I can't sleep if there's a pin drop like right next to me. And then he looks at me, he's like 65 years old and he's this like real wise guy, and he's been training with like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And he's like, Quazi, I'm not like you modern day kids, I'm not sensitive. Buddy, if you just accept every single day that 90% of things will just never go your way. 90% of things will just never go your way. But if you accept that right off the bat, you will live the most peaceful life. That's when things actually do go your way. And I couldn't comprehend the profundity of what he just said at that moment. But when I started just living by that, just like accepting, you know what? That's all right. Tomorrow's going to be hard. Today may be hard. I may not sleep well. Nothing might go my way, but I'm not going to let that stop me. I'm going to do the best that I can do, right? Because at the end of the day, what's the one thing you have complete control over? Your own attitude, your own inputs, what you're putting in. And if you just do that, you're going to be unstoppable. Because most people are reactive, right? They're reacting to, oh, I don't feel good today, so I'm not going to do this. I don't feel good, so I'm not going to do that. So this surrender mechanism will show you how to deal with those feelings, how to get to a place where you become the master of your internal state. When you gain mastery over your internal state, that's when you become unstoppable. That's when there is no competition at that point. You're just living your best life. You're not looking at others. You're just becoming the best you that you can be. Okay? So the goal of this mechanism is to teach you how to process your feelings correctly. And for those of you who want to go deeper on this, I recommend reading this book, Letting Go by David R. Hawkins. I pretty much revisit this once every year, and I've probably read it 5 times already, and this has been the most read book that I've used in my whole life. The problem with this book, though, is that it doesn't really summarize the surrender mechanism properly. And after working with clients for over 4 years, I've really boiled this down to a simple, easy-to-use process that I'm going to share with you right now. It's a simple 3-step process that if you learn to do, your life will begin to change right before your very eyes. Right? So before we understand how this 3-step process works, let's talk about how the different ways in which we process our feelings. Okay? At the lowest level, level 1, there is repression. What does this mean? This is a completely unconscious, subconscious process. When something is too strong to be handled right now, we repress it, and it shows up in different ways in our lives. You know, different ailments, illnesses, cancers, they all show up because of our karma, okay? And that's stored in our unconscious mind, which is 90% of our whole being. So repression, it's when you all of a sudden are stuck in traffic and you just get really angry. Please understand this. Traffic can't make you angry. It's because you have pent-up anger within you in the first place. It finds release when there's an event, when there's a triggering event, right? Something triggers the anger within you, the pent-up, the repressed feelings within you. When we don't learn how to properly deal with our feelings and we deal with them unconsciously and we push them down, over time they start to get repressed, okay? So there's a conscious process that leads to this unconscious repression. There's nothing you can do about repressed feelings. This whole journey of life is undoing our karma, all of the repressed feelings that we've had, not just in this lifetime, but in previous lifetimes too, if you believe in that. So it's futile to worry about this. For the purposes of this video, I just want you to know how this happens so you can understand it. But what really causes repression is suppression, which is a conscious way in which we deal with our feelings, right? So whenever you feel something, you don't know how to deal with it, you just suppress it. You haven't been taught how to unpack it, confront it. Like in the modern day and age, a lot of men believe that they've got to be strong, you can't cry, men don't cry. And all of these BS beliefs make men deal with their feelings and not confront them and not, afraid to be vulnerable around others because they've been taught that it's the wrong thing to do. Again, a false idea. But if you can just walk through life and feel whatever it is you're feeling, allow yourself to feel it fully. If you can just learn to do that, you'll be the most at ease, peaceful person in the world. If you just take some time every single day to hang out with yourself, right? So that's another way in which we deal with our feelings, suppression. But suppression inevitably leads to repression. A level above that is expression. Expression is when you actually do let out the energy of the feeling, but a majority of it gets suppressed. So for example, you're stuck in traffic and you feel angry. Instead of suppressing that anger, you start screaming and you start cursing. You're expressing it. You're reacting. You're letting out that energy into the world. Over 80% of it will still get suppressed under the surface. So that's still not the best way to deal with our feelings. So the question is, what is? And this is surrender. Okay? A lot of people are afraid of the word surrender. A lot of people are afraid of being vulnerable. But if you want to live the best life, you must learn to surrender and let your guard down. We believe if we keep our guard up, we're going to be protecting ourselves from something. Right? Like even when I talked about mechanism number 2, you were probably thinking, I'm going to guard myself against those incoming thoughts so they never affect me. No. When you guard yourself against something, you've already lost. When you're guarding yourself against thoughts and feelings, you've already lost the battle. The key is to accept them fully. Whatever comes, whatever life throws at you, you have to become flexible. Think flexible like water. You're molding to whatever life throws at you in this moment. If life gives you a conflict, great. There's some growth to be had from it. There's something I've got to learn. This is my journey, my unique individual journey. The suffering arises when we start to compare ourselves with other people and what we think our lives should be like. Oh, I'm 35, I should have been married by now. I should have had kids by now. Oh no, by society standards, I'm a failure. Of course, not everyone's supposed to live by societal standards, right? Everyone has their own unique path in life. The sooner you own that, the sooner that becomes the metric for your life, not some fucking societal bullshit, the sooner you start to live your best life and manifest what you want, right? That's what this whole journey is about, you living your own unique life. So the highest level, the best way to deal with our feelings is by surrendering to them, okay? By letting them be. So let's talk about the 3-step surrender process. What surrendering will do, it's kind of like a pressure cooker. Whatever arises, as you surrender them, the pressure behind it, the energy behind it, lets off. If you keep feeling fearful and anxious and you surrender, you perform this 3-step surrender process, over time, that initial thought that triggered that feeling, that thought, nothing. You're empty inside. That's what you want to be. You want to feel at ease, empty, devoid of any baggage. That's what we want to do. Okay? So, this is how the 3-step surrender process works. Step 1. Whatever's arising, thought, feeling, forget the thought, because you have to understand one feeling produces thousands of thoughts. It's the feeling that produces the thought. Thought is there to justify the presence of a feeling. If you feel anxious, you can come up with a million reasons why you feel anxious. Oh, I feel anxious because maybe Mercury's in retrograde. I feel anxious because maybe I didn't have my morning coffee. I feel anxious because maybe this happened in my life, that happened in my life, whatever excuse you can make. So those thoughts are just excuses. Discard them. Focus, go right to the source. What feeling is arising? Acknowledge that feeling. Step 1. Acknowledge it without labeling it. Don't try to get rid of it. Whatever is happening, let that be there and give it a mental embrace. Okay, this is the best way in which I can describe it. Give it a mental hug. Embrace. What will happen is, if you're dealing with something that's very painful, it'll last for maybe 4 or 5 minutes, 10 minutes max. Don't cease all activity just because of that. Just acknowledge it and let it be. The surrender process will happen, and just continue on with your living. Don't let it affect you. Don't give it too much meaning or importance. Don't stop everything and just say, you know, this whole day is done now. I'm feeling this and I'm just going to sit here and just surrender it. No, you've lost. You're giving it too much meaning. Let it be there. It's just a feeling. Feelings come and go. You're feeling this right now because you're meant to feel this. This is your karmic journey. You're undoing karma so you can become emptier and more at ease, right? So let it be and continue on with your life. It's not going to go away immediately. Rome wasn't built in a day. It's going to keep coming up, the same feeling again and again. Continue and repeat this process as long as it takes. Don't judge it. If it takes a day, great. If it takes a month, great. If it takes a year, great. Just complete full acceptance of what is. If you can just live that unguarded, completely in acceptance and open to whatever is, you'll have no problem. You'll be the freest person in the world. Your manifestations will just happen without you even insisting on it. Things will happen beyond your wildest dreams, beyond what you've even wanted. When I started off, I wanted to be able to escape my professional job, right? I just wanted to escape my dead-end, soul-sucking career, and I wanted to just have financial freedom so I could travel, I could live life on my own terms. I wanted to live that laptop lifestyle. We have a 7-figure business. I'm super excited and energized by what I do every single day. It's beyond my wildest dreams. I just wanted to make 6 figures, right? So all of these things happen if you just learn to walk your own path and you learn how to deal with your feelings as they arise. Instead of fighting them, go with them. They're trying to tell you something. They're good. They're not bad. Feeling bad is not bad. It's like that Mark Manson book. The desire for a positive experience itself is a negative experience. The acceptance of a negative experience is itself a positive experience. So that's what I want you to remember. To give you a complete example of this, one of our clients, Louise, she had just quit her corporate career to start up her own business, but it wasn't doing too well. She wasn't making enough to support herself and her family. So instead of holding on to that anxiety, that pain, which is what we do, she completely surrendered it. She let go to the point where she was considering quitting her business to just go and get a job again so that she could make ends meet. Guess what happened as soon as she just unguarded herself and completely surrendered it? Clients started to reach out to her, and she started to get more offers from prospective clients, and she went from making barely 1 to 2K a month to, I believe now she's doing 15K a month. So she pretty much 8x'd her revenue. In this screenshot that I'm going to put up here, she did 18K in profit. So that's what's possible if you stop holding on to whatever idea you had. This is exactly what happened with me back in May of 2019, the year I graduated from college. The pressure was very high then. I had to prove to my parents that I could make it with a business. And prior to that, when I started the business in January 2019, I was making 1 to 2K a month. And I promised my parents that, I made them promise at least, that if I made 5K a month, they would stop badgering me and would let me run my business. They're like, sure, whatever. And so I tried. 1 to 2K a month. Okay, May was supposed to be my best month. I graduated and I decided not to go into that job full time. And that month I made absolute zero, and that destroyed me. And I remember every single day that month, every single sales call that I got on, it was so important. The importance was so high. I just kept holding on to it. No, I need to make this work. I need to make this work. That month I made zero, absolute zero, and I was devastated. And I kind of had like a night of the dark soul, or dark night of the soul, or whatever it is. And then I remember just like sitting, crying, and just like being in tears and just being like, fuck it. I'm just gonna do my best, let's see what happens. And I stopped holding on to any preconceived notions I had. I stopped trying to be a certain way on a sales call. I stopped trying to make a video in a certain way. And I just completely let go of it. And I even got okay with the idea of, you know, maybe I won't be able to make this work and I'll go back to a job. I stopped fighting that. So when you perform this correctly, what happens is you just get emptier and emptier. And that's how you'll know that you're performing this correctly. If you feel neutral towards everything, then you are surrendered, you are at ease. But if you're holding on to something, if something is a little more important than something else, that's when you know there's something that needs to be surrendered. One quote, I know I'm full of quotes. One quote I heard recently is, the fear of death stems from the fear of life. He who lives fully is ready to die at any moment. If you live fully, you're ready to part with anything at any moment. And you're in complete acceptance of it. Anything can happen at any time. But the more you hold on to it, the more you suffer. And honestly, the more likely it is that that thing is going to happen. Okay? So this is mechanism number 3. And if you learn to do this, just this 3-step process for the next 30 days, your life will profoundly change, especially if you're someone who's never done this before. So now you have the 3 mechanisms, the 3 main mechanisms that you can use to control your mind. And once you start applying this for the next 30 to 90 days, I can honestly promise you're going to start seeing profound shifts happening in your reality. So now I have a very important question for you. Are you going to be one of those people who just watches another video on YouTube and thinks, all right, this is cool, back to my herp-derp life? Or are you actually going to do something about it? Because if you've chosen the latter, then I have good news for you. Here's my invitation for you to take these teachings to a much deeper level and actually get real results, real accountability, real community of other like-minded people who are in the exact shoes that you are and have gotten real results applying this material. We've helped over 1,000 clients do this for themselves. So here's my invitation for you to join our flagship reality mastery program, where we help individuals like you master their realities and become conscious creators in this mission to create a complete, best, ultimate human being. Okay? We work with 2 types of people in our reality mastery program. Number 1, people who are professionals like I was in a corporate job that they hate. They want to transition out, start up their own business, do something that gives them freedom. They've tried the different business opportunities, but nothing stuck. They're starting to see that it's not a tactical or strategic problem. It's not a business opportunity problem. It really is a mindset problem. They're unclear on what they really want. And I was there too. I tried all of the different things and nothing really stuck. But once I start to get clarity on my life and fully and properly define what I wanted, then my reticular activating system got programmed with that and the opportunities started to come my way. That's what we help you do in the Reality Mastery Program. Number 2, if you're an existing entrepreneur and you're making money, you're in business for yourself, you want to scale and make more money and you try the different business strategies and tactics, but nothing really gives you a revenue increase. You make 6 figures one month and you go back down to 5 figures and it's this revenue roller coaster. And you see that these habits that you have, the mindset patterns that you have, the way you deal with things, it's not serving you. It clearly is a mindset and an identity problem. If that sounds like you, if any of that sounds like you, please go to realitycreator.com/apply to fill up an application and schedule a call with us where we will discuss 3 things. Number 1, we're going to find out your blind spots, help you see what is really keeping you stuck. And this is more than 80% of the work done. Number 2, we're going to create a custom game plan for you, a 12-month game plan of something, a goal that we can set together to work with each other. And number 3, we're going to actually give you tools to do this for yourself and discuss whether or not the Reality Mastery Program will be a good fit. And if it's not a good fit, then we're going to give you something to work on for yourself so that you can walk away from it. Now, the caveat to this is this isn't a free coaching call. Please don't schedule a call if you're looking for free coaching. We take, great care, but we want to work with the right people because we do work with people lifetime in our program. It isn't a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year program. We've had clients from 2, 3, 4 years ago when we first started, day one, right? And to be able to support a client lifetime, they have to be the right client. We have to be a good fit. So we really like to make sure that every single client that joins becomes a member of our family. And we get them great results and we build a continual relationship with them. Our clients from 4 years ago they just keep growing and growing and growing. You should see where they started and where they are at right now. Okay, so if this is something that interests you, please go to realitycreator.com/apply, and we're looking forward to speaking with you to see if this would be a good fit. Thanks.